So Amaroq is a lawyer with the Center for Biological Diversity, and her talk will be Oregon Wolf Recovery, Past, Present, and Future, followed by Robert Wilgus, independent scientist, past director of WSU's Large Carnivore Lab, and his talk is Effect of Hunting on Cougar and Human Conflicts. And then Amaroq's second talk for Sophia and Sophia is with the Humane Society of the United States, by the way. That talk is Black Bears in the Pacific Northwest, Current Status Updates, and What's Next. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Good. I was hoping that was there. Wait, so which one? This is?
So
down is next slide. Got it. Okay. Good morning. My name is Amaroq Weiss. I am the senior wolf advocate with the Center for Biological Diversity. I am a biologist and a former attorney, or as my husband likes to say, a malingering attorney. I have been doing wolf recovery advocacy for the last 25 years. And at first blush, that sounds like, geez, that is a hell of a long time. But then I look out in the audience, and I know we have Dave Willis here from Soda Mountain Wilderness Council. We've got Andy Kerr here from the Larch Company. And then I know I am just a pup. So in 1947, a farmer in Lane County killed a wolf, took its pelt to the county courthouse, and collected the combined state and county $30 bounty payment. After that, not a single wolf was reported in Oregon. In the 1600s, 380,000 wolves are estimated to have roamed just across the western United States and Mexico and alone. By the early 1900s, the wolves were gone. How did that happen? As settlers moved west, they cleared the land for their livestock and their grain. They killed off most of the large carnivores. They killed off many of the large ungulates. And in the early 1900s, Congress stepped in and appropriated money for a federal agency to engage in a wolf eradication campaign. It was successful. Across the western United States, across all of the United States, hundreds of thousands of wolves were killed. Just this spring, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I'll call them ODFW from here on, released its end-of-year 2022 annual wolf report. And in that report, they indicated there are currently a confirmed 178 wolves in Oregon, in 24 packs, 17 of which had successful breeding pairs. And you can see on the map here, those blue indications are where wolf packs and some groups of wolves are living in Oregon right now. So how did this happen? How did we get from 0 wolves after 1947 to 178 wolves today? It started 52 years after that last wolf was turned in for a bounty, with the arrival of wolf B45, a dispersing radio-collared wolf from Idaho who came to Oregon on her own. She was the offspring of wolves that had been reintroduced to central Idaho in the mid-1990s, ironically by the very same federal agency that had been responsible for eradicating wolves decades before. She arrived in Oregon, made her way across the Snake River, and with her arrival, she was the harbinger of more wolves to come. About a month after she arrived in Oregon, in the North Fork John Day region, she was captured by state and federal agency officials and transported back to Idaho by airplane, which is what you're seeing in this slide right here. That happened because at the time, Oregon state officials did not realize that wolves were listed as endangered under the State Endangered Species Act, and she should have been left alone to wander where she wanted to go. In the following 2 years, 2 more Idaho wolves came to Oregon. In 2000 and 2001, one wolf was killed illegally by a shotgun in eastern Oregon. Another one died after being struck by a vehicle. And by 2003, the Oregon Fish and Wildlife Commission had got the picture. Wolves were coming to Oregon, and since they were listed under the State Endangered Species Act, returning them to Idaho was not an option. So in 2003, the Oregon Fish and Wildlife Commission decided that the state should develop a wolf conservation and management plan. And to assist ODFW in developing that plan, they appointed 14 stakeholders. I was one of them. After a full public process in 2005, the commission adopted the Oregon Wolf Conservation and Management Plan. And one of the components of that plan is it is required every 5 years to update the plan. So right on time in 2010, the plan was updated. Not right on time, the next update took place greatly delayed in 2019, and our third update is about to become due in 2024. Now realize at the time that the plan was adopted in 2005, wolves were fully protected as endangered under both the Oregon State Endangered Species Act and the Federal Endangered Species Act throughout the entirety of the state. Since the plan was developed, and up to the present, there have been multiple legal actions at both the state and the federal level which have affected and do have a continuing impact on wolf recovery and conservation in Oregon. I'm going to mention just 4 of them. So first of all, in 2011, Congress stepped in and stripped federal protections from wolves in the entire eastern 1/3 of the state. So on this map here, the part that is green with the crosshatchings is where wolves do not have federal protections and have not since 2011. Later that same year, 2011, Center for Biological Diversity, Oregon Wild, Cascadia Wildlands, our 3 organizations sued the state because it was failing to follow what was required in the state wolf plan with respect to how they were handling conflicts with livestock. 2 years later, the settlement of that lawsuit resulted in stronger protections for wolves in the very early phases of wolf recovery. Then in 2015, the commission prematurely stripped State Endangered Species Act protections from wolves across the entire state. Some of you may have been involved in that very contentious and drawn out and illegal and unscientific process. Then in 2021, the Trump administration, in its waning days in early January, just before he left office, stripped federal protections from wolves throughout almost the entire lower 48 United States, including the remaining 2/3 of Western Oregon, those 2 blue portions. Fortunately, due to lawsuits that were filed by many conservation groups, including Center for Biological Diversity, Oregon Wild, and many others, a court in 2022 overturned that decision, restored protections, so now once again, wolves in the western 2/3 of Oregon do have their federal protections back. Let's talk a little bit about the wolf plan. So as you can see on this map, the wolf plan divides the state in half. The dividing line is running down Highway 97 from the Columbia River down to Bend, then cutting over on Highway 20, and then down 395 down to the border with California. The reason that the plan set it up this way was the realization that Oregon's wolves are coming from Idaho. So it's most likely that the eastern half of the state would get populated with wolves long before wolves began in any measurable numbers to make it over to the west side. And it was realized that ODFW may have a need to manage wolves a little bit differently on one side of the state than the other due to the population difference. The plan also set population objectives. Keep in mind, though, there is no population cap for wolves in Oregon. There are no wolf zones. There's no place that it's prohibited for wolves to be, which are good features of the plan. The plan manages wolves through a 3-phased adaptive management approach. And so, for instance, there's a phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and therefore each side of the state they need to be met for wolves to get from one phase to the other. So if wolves get to be 4 successful breeding pairs for 3 consecutive years, they move out of phase 1 into phase 2. Once they get to 7 successful breeding pairs for 3 successive years, Then they move from phase 2 into phase 3. Phase 3 doesn't have any upper level goal, but its goal is to make sure the population does not decline below that 7 successful breeding pairs. So once again, there's no cap, there's no wolf zones in Oregon. The idea was to get wolves distributed across the state. What do I mean by a phased adaptive management approach? The simple way to describe that is that in the early stages of recovery, wolves will have more protection. In the later stages of recovery, they will have lesser protections. And one example of that, and this is just one, in the wolf plan, so under what circumstances could ODFW consider killing wolves for conflicts with livestock? Well, in phase 1, you can see it is very nicely protective for wolves. First, the agency has to identify where there is an area of known wolf activity. Then if predation occurs, they identify an area of depredating wolves. Very shortly after that, I think it's within 2 weeks, they have to be working with the potentially affected landowners to develop a plan for using non-lethal conflict deterrents to prevent conflicts if the rancher isn't already using them, which would be great if they did. There can't be any attractants present. There can't be bone piles, carcasses left from livestock that have died from other causes, because that draws wolves to your territory. That draws all kinds of predators to your ranch. The non-lethal measures have to have been in place then for any future depredations, and if there are more reactive non-lethals have to be put in place. Compare that to phase 2 and phase 3, where all that really has to happen is, first of all, and I did fail to mention, there have to be 4 predations within a 6-month period before going to killing wolves can be considered. In phase 2 and phase 3, there only need to be 2 predations in a 9-month period. There can't be attractants. There's also far fewer requirements for the use of non-lethals in phase 2 and phase 3, so definitely less protective. I described before that the annual wolf report said that there are 178 confirmed wolves in Oregon at this time, which means there's probably a bit more than that, but they do confirm the ones that they report. That gives you a snapshot in time. What's important to do with Oregon and any state that's having wolves is to look at their annual reports year after year, and then you can begin to pick up trends. And we have seen some very troubling trends coming over the years in Oregon. So first of all, with wolves having moved into phase 2 and phase 3 in the eastern half of the state a number of years ago, there are far more non-lethals being used, and we're seeing an uptick in livestock conflicts. With the reduced threshold for when the agency can kill wolves, we're seeing the agency killing more wolves, and we're seeing the agency giving more permits to livestock owners to kill wolves. We are seeing an increasing number of poaching. In 2021, 8 wolves were poisoned, including an entire 5-member pack. This last year, 7 wolves were poached. Since 2011, at least 32 wolves have been known to have been poached, but realize of those 32, almost half of them occurred just in the last 2 years. So we're definitely seeing an uptick in illegal killing. The annual population growth also is stagnating. Last year, the population growth was 1.7%. The year before that, it was 1%. Starting back in about 2016, we saw a population growth of only 6%. We've only seen some double digits in between then. We are no longer seeing the 30% annual increase you would want to see of a wolf population in the infancy of its recovery. And then we are seeing decreasing transparency by the agency. Last fall, the agency updated their wolf webpage where they give announcements to streamline it. And it's good for them because it makes it much easier for how little information they have to put out. Unfortunately, they've removed a lot of the information that they used to put out that the public relies on, and we're hoping to get some of that restored. So there is a wolf plan update that will be coming due, and these are some of the changes we see that need to be made. I need my reading glasses. Yeah, okay, I have been doing this for 25 years. So we need to see stronger protections in phase 2 and phase 3. We need to see them mimicking what there is in phase 1. We need to see agent designation up front, and what I mean by that is when the agency issues a kill permit to a livestock owner, that permit is good for a certain period of time, and the livestock owner can do the killing, or they can designate someone as their agent to do the killing. And they should be required to designate their agent immediately, because what we have seen in some circumstances is that the livestock owner will have multiple people out across the property for days or weeks looking for wolves, and then whoever kills the wolf ends up getting designated as their agent. And we all know what that is, right? That's an organized wolf hunt, and we don't have wolf hunting in Oregon, so that needs to change. We need more transparency by ODFW. We need to get some of that information back up on the website. We need to prohibit the agency from killing pups or orphaning pups. In 2020, they killed 4.5-month-old pups who just a month before had lost their milk teeth. They were only capable of hunting meadow mice or crickets. There's no reason to have killed the pups. We need ODFW to verify that there's no attractants on the landscape. Right now, they seem to be simply taking the word of the rancher that there are no bone piles or carcasses there. We need the agency to verify that, because that's truly a draw to bring in all kinds of trouble. We also need to have tactics to combat the poaching. In Oregon, a new state wildlife crimes prosecutor has a new position funded by the legislature. Unfortunately, he can't get involved in poaching investigations unless the DA's office from a particular county invites him in to participate. So we need that to be fixed. Of course, we need to prohibit the establishment of recreational wolf hunting and trapping. All the science tells us there's no reason to be hunting wolves. They regulate their own populations. And when they're not regulating their own populations, they're regulated by the population density of their prey. This wolf plan update process, we expect it to start late this year. Probably ODFW will give a presentation to the commission late in this year. The process will then go on over into the spring with public input. The agency may be meeting. Oh my God, I don't even want to think about that. Meeting with stakeholders to discuss what we all feel should be in the wolf plan before they put it out in an update for the public to comment on. But remember, ultimately, it is the commission that is going to decide which of the recommendations that have been put forward that they will adopt and that they will deny. And we know that you all want to be involved so that you can know what's going on in this process, so that you can comment either in writing or testifying. And so be sure that you are getting our alerts. If you're not already signed up to get alerts from Center for Biological Diversity, we have a table over there. There is a sign-up clipboard there. Make sure you put in your first and last name and your zip code, because we will aim it specifically to Oregon residents. And if you have any other questions, there's my email address. And if we don't get to questions through our question and answer period today, feel free to contact me afterwards. Thank you.